Heidi here from Rain Country Homestead. God is good all the time. And just to let you know, when you hear my dog whining, he's not, locked up in a crate or chained up or anything like that. He just follows me around, and every time I start making a video, he decides he wants attention, so he whines. That's all it is. Anyway, so, and this time I do actually have measurements I can give you, but I still don't actually follow those measurements that closely when I'm making these, but I'll tell you what the actual measurements are. So you want to start off with 3 cups of flour. Now I'm going to be using 2 cups of home ground whole white wheat flour. And just in case you're wondering, there's a difference between white wheat and red wheat. And I think there's a golden wheat too, which I've never tried. Red wheat is what you typically buy when you buy store-bought wheat bread, and it has a much darker color and that more bitter flavor. Where your white wheat, it has a sweeter flavor, and so I prefer it, and it's just lighter all the way around, and so it just works in everything. Now, and then for my 3rd cup, I'm just going to use an all-purpose white flour that's unbleached, organic, and non-GMO. It's obviously not as healthy as the whole wheat flour, but it is the healthiest you can get in a white flour. So anyway, and these wheat berries, the wheat berries I use for my home ground, home milled flour, are ones that I've soaked with vinegar and rainwater for 24 hours at least, and then I dry them on my wood stove, and then I hand mill them. So anyway, so 3 cups of flour total is what you need. Now for your baking powder, you need 2 teaspoons. So what I have here, this little scooper I keep in here that came from something else, it's a half a tablespoon, which is a teaspoon and a half. So I just use I use a heaping one of those. And then you're supposed to use, because I got this recipe initially from somewhere else and then tweaked it to suit me, you're supposed to use about 2 teaspoons of salt. I kind of cut back and do about 1 teaspoon. So, which in my hand is about like that. So, but see what you want to do there. And then I like to, not all the time, but quite often I like to add in extra things just to make the tortillas more healthy. So this is chia seed, and that's a little better than the tablespoon, and poppy seed. It just adds more minerals, those nutrients that we're so depleted in. And then for this one today, this will be a first, I'm going to add some fresh calendula petals. Now, I've put dandelion petals in some previous batches, and I liked that pretty good. But this time I'm using the calendula because, well, I have lots still blooming, as I keep talking about. So we'll throw that in there, and we'll get the little nutritional, medicinal benefits from those as well. And seeing as how the flavor is very mild, much like a dandelion petal, it should blend quite well in here. And you can use dried. I'm just using these fresh because I just went and picked them. And yeah, so it's just a way I can add a little more nutrients to something that might not be as nutrient dense as I'd like it to be. Mix those in. Okay, now when it comes to your fat, you can use lard if you don't have a problem with pig meat. I prefer to use organic palm shortening. I get this from Tropical Traditions, and grass-fed butter. I use a little of both. And your measurement will be approximately 3/4 cup of your fat. So I usually put in a good sized scoop of this, and then a chunk of the butter, and then I'm going to cut that in. Okay, so then the next thing, I've got the fat all worked in there, very much like I do for biscuits or pie crust. I like to break it up. I like to use my fingers to do that. Then you want to use 1 cup of your filtered rainwater, spring water, well water, whatever good healthy water you have. And you want to heat it up a little bit. So I just brought this in from the wood stove. And it can be hot or it can just be warm. It doesn't really have to be, but you know, you can use it cold. I've done that before. However, it does make the dough much easier to work. So it's just, you know, it's just an option you can consider, but it's not a have-to thing. And for whatever reason, this seems, I probably put too much fat in it after all. That sure did not seem like $2 a cup. So I'm going to add a little more flour. This out. And then I'm going to be breaking this up. Now, depending on how big you want your tortillas is going to depend on how many parts you break this up into. So I'm doing homemade burritos. And I want probably an average size tortilla for this. So you're going to, you know, add flour as you need to. Just knead it a little bit. It doesn't have to be kneaded a lot. So I'm thinking I'm going to break this into 10 parts. I still have more to roll out, but there's no sense in me doing all that on camera. My dough is a little bit too soft, and so I ripped a couple. I think what I did was I didn't actually measure the water. I just poured it in here, so I probably had well over a cup of water in there because it was way too wet. But that's okay. It should work out fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go start cooking these on the wood stove, and then what I do is I go back and forth. I finish rolling out the rest while I've got one cooking. So I'm going to move the camera into there and show you how I do. So I've already started cooking some tortillas. I'm having a heck of a time because my, you know, figures when I'm trying to focus just on a tortilla recipe, I get it too wet and my tortillas are falling apart. Typically I do better than this. But anyway, I grease down I scrape off my stovetop really good. I grease it down with a little bit of palm shortening or coconut oil. And then I just throw my tortilla right on there and then let it bake. When it gets good and bubbly on top, it's ready to flip. You don't want it to get too dark. And as you can see, it's darker on this side because this is the side that's towards the back of the stove, which is, you know, it's going to be hotter back there, right in this area. So I can actually, while that's doing that, get another one cooking right next to it. Okay, and again, I've said this in other videos where I've made the tortillas. Now this one just happened to turn out nice and round. That's kind of rare. It doesn't matter how perfectly round your tortillas are. You know, remember, these are not store-bought. They're not stamped with a big, you know, cutter. We're just rolling them out and cooking them the real way. Okay, I'm going to let that cook just a little bit longer. And so anyway, back here in this pot are my leftover soup beans from last night's dinner when I made what I call hillbilly beans and cornbread. And so I'm going to cook them down. I'm going to add some cumin, some chili powder, some red pepper flakes, and probably some paprika and maybe a few other spices just to make it good and spicy. I'm going to brown up some ground beef and throw that in, and I'm going to put in some organic cheddar cheese. And that's what I'll use to fill the tortillas when we're having homemade burritos tonight. And there you have it. There's the homemade tortillas cooked on a wood stove. So I hope you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.